The Apriorian Manifesto. Reality is not what you think it is. This is not a life where there are civilians or non-combatants. All of us are at war, from the least to the highest. This is not a physical war between flesh and blood combatants, so sex and age are immaterial. There is only one division in this reality, and that division is defined by which side you are fighting on. The default side, the side we all start out on, is the side of demons, liars and the killers of Christ. If you do not wish to serve in the legions of Satan, you must cross no man's land and join the legions of Christ. You have often heard it said, the devil is a liar and a deceiver. He is a liar, but he only needs you to believe one lie, there is no war to fight. Once you believe this, you are lost. Once you believe this, the devil has enrolled another soul to his side. All pacifists are in league with Satan. The legions of Satan do not see this. Those who are in league with Satan want peace. When the ungodly look at earth, they see peaceful valleys and much that delights the eye, much that excites the pleasures. We are all born into this world. We are all born into peace. We are born infants, drinking milk nurtured by a mother. Many of us grow and become fully functioning adults. But the number that do not do this, ever outnumber us, and the number is growing. The Bible is a call to arms. Be not deceived, O gentle ones, peaceful spreaders of joy, desiring only strength in diversity. There is no diversity in the army of God, and there is no peace. But there is joy and eventual victory, and the joy of every soul saved to Christ. There cannot be peace with the enemies of God. Children are not saved because they are spiritually immature by birth, but they are not condemned. God does not condemn us, we condemn ourselves by our decision to not fight by remaining as a child. Everybody makes a choice to be a spiritually mature adult. There is no choice about remaining a child, this is a choice to remain without choice. Everyone, without exception, at some point in their life chooses to be an adult, or not. The child must be a chid, but the adult must, at some point, decide to put away the things of the child, or not. Some children never grow up. They look at what it takes to be an adult and then refuse to make that step. This is where we take that leap of faith into the new world of spiritual maturity. But if you do not mature as a physical child, how do you grow as a spirit? As there are physical children, there are the spiritually immature. As there are physical adults, there are the spiritually mature. It's a choice. God does not force us to grow up. God never conscripts us into his army. This is a choice we have to make. We have to choose to fight on the side of God. We have to decide to join his army. But joining his army is the only way to achieve spiritual maturity. If you do not wish to fight for God, there is no need to grow, in a spiritual way. Indeed, to say one is spiritually mature but not wearing the whole armor of God, is a contradiction of the first order. We are under attack because trust is under attack. Civilizations are built on trust. To win this war we must regain what was used to build our nations, in the first place. This force, this weapon, is the trust that we have by being peoples of God. We rejected God and lost the trust we had, and now we are losing everything. If we trust, we cannot be defeated. If we do not trust, we are living in a place where we are not trustworthy. The first step is always to build up trust with ourselves. The Bible tells us to let our yea be yea and our nay. This is the essence of adulthood. We must know our mind, make our choice and stand by it. The choice must first be made to stand with God. This is when we first decide to be true to ourselves. We are made in the image of God. Apriorian is about logical coherence. It does not matter where we start, if we are logically coherent in the way we think, we will arrive at God. The Apriorian Manifesto is about the need for logical coherence if we are to remain true to ourselves. The worst thing we can do is to break trust with our information, with the way we think. Above all, we need to be honest with ourselves about how we think, if we are to be honest. Only children avoid reality by making fantasy worlds to live in, yet this is what so many biological adults do. They have created an illusion of peace and security with the state as their protector. This is thinking like a child. The Apriorian Manifesto is about how to think in a spiritually mature way. Apriorians, as spiritually mature persons, know they must pay their own way, what is more they have children to compensate for the cost of raising them. Their family exists to compensate the world for all the work that went into raising them as children, to adulthood. But if one never ceases to be a child, One will not own rearing cost society. Apriorians, as the adults in the room, know there are adults and children, and that at some point, all children need to assume maturity. There is biological maturity and there is spiritual maturity. People do get bigger, and they undergo biological and physiological changes as time passes. Most children will become biological adults given enough time. This creates some confusion because the biological adult may not be spiritually mature. The adult then knows he or she needs to be an adult, but he also knows there are children who needs to be nurtured to adulthood. What the spiritually mature person may not be fully aware of, is that many ostensible adults are actually children, spiritually speaking. The flesh are the spiritually immature persons. They are spiritual children regardless of if biologically speaking, they are adults or children. This is why the spiritual immature are called those of the flesh. But some children grow into adults in the fullest sense of the word, and these are spiritually mature persons. These are the ones who the Bible calls, the people of the Spirit. The spiritually mature are good and those who are spiritually mature are evil. In a real sense, not growing up, not becoming mature, defines evil. But this has broader connotations. When one is a child, one is dependent. As a child we live off of others. But as an adult we pay our own way. As an adult we have and raise our own children. They are dependents but we care for them out of charity. But when children do not grow up, their care is no longer done willingly, and they become a burden on society. This is why the spiritually immature are evil, they are parasites. All evil exploits others, all evil consists of someone creating costs they will not pay. These are adults who still have the mentality of children. Satan created costs he could not pay. This deficit has existed throughout time and has only become larger. The worker is worthy of his pay, but how can this be possible if some never mature? We are in a war, it is a war of good against evil. This was never understood fully by past generations, now you may see why. The war is against the freeloader, the spiritually immature. But now we see this is as much a war against our own fear of maturity. We must fight all desire to revert back to a time of dependency. But there are many who play the victim card. They want the help of spiritually mature people. They are playing us. But there are a lot of enablers who are willing to support the immaturity of some so they can then support them in their childish state. Many people only want to hear fairy stories and be fed milk. But there is a war going on and we are all in it. The only ones who think they are not, are doing the will of Satan. The war of Satan is fought by assisting Christians figure out why they need not combat evil. This war, on the Christian side, is fought against complacency, the status quo and the default setting that is immaturity. This is the interesting truth, the devil wins simply by encouraging Christians not to fight, and to not to see the necessity of maturing. One of the easiest ways of doing this is by turning the strengths of the adult against them. Adults are naturally caring. One of the features of an adult is that we want to have and nurture children. This sentiment is easily transferred over to dog and other animals but also to people in need. The devil exploits our good nature by presenting the spiritually immature as people in need. But in fact they are at war with us. The devil desires to make children of us all, not the ones that come to Jesus because these are the ones slated to become adults. It is the coming to Jesus that gives us our spiritual maturity. This is why the devil does everything to make children remain children. This helps us to understand the attack on children. The devil wants people to be needy and dependent and feeling inadequate. The government hates those who are spiritually mature. We have no use for the state. Rub. Children are not mature. They never gain a real personality. Some kids stand out in their ability to interact with adults, but they are likely to mature spiritually. But the spiritually immature are not partial to kids that are different. They want homogeneity. The spiritual immature want kids to be unlikely to want to grow into spiritual maturity. DEI is just another way to justify the homogenization of the young. The devil wants to give us cultures without substance. The devil wants everything to be just a meaningless choice, in the way breakfast cereals have become 100 choices without any meaning to any of them. The devil does not want us to have a culture that we see as the product of many mature persons all working to do their part to build on what was built before. Socialism is the devil's favorite tool. It recreates childhood. The subject is a child and the government the parent. The state makes all the rules for the dependent subject. The state takes everything from the subject, actually as in communism, or indirectly as with capitalism, because it is the de facto parent or guardian. The state gives to the subject what it thinks it needs, as the parent cares for the child. But this is the inversion of reality that is the reality of this world. In reality, the state is the child, and all those who depend on the state are its children, but they are the children of a child. The right and the left vie against each other. But the right has been infiltrated with the same desire to avoid the responsibilities of adulthood, as defines the left. Logic dictates someone must be an adult, we cannot all be children. Logic also commands that at some time the biological child must be an adult, but logic also says that the body getting older does not help if the spirit does not assume the thinking of a spiritually mature person's. Too many people grow older in the body but not the soul. The soul ages but it never grows old. The soul grows and matures as spiritual maturity. The soul does not age with time or age. The body is the soul and flesh. The spirit is the soul and the church. When we are alive in the spirit, we are mature spiritually and compose the church. When we talk about predestination, it is not God creating a number of souls that will mature. This makes no sense either logically or theologically. God created the church. Church binds on earth those who will be bound in heaven. These are the ones God predestines to be saved. Apriorian identifies the spiritually mature to create a church that is spiritually mature. The spiritually mature are the church that binds on earth. This is not an event without a process. Binding on earth is a real event with real parameters. The binding is done through the development of trust. In other words, binding on earth is the same process that leads to spiritual maturity and the aging of the soul. The soul ages but never dies. Those who are bound on earth develop into spiritual maturity. Those who develop spiritual maturity are saved and bound in heaven. There ought to be nothing strange about this. Heaven is just the city in which the spiritual mature live. The city is built as we build the church. As we build the church, we build the city of God, the heavenly city. This process takes us from fleshy beings that age as the world ages, to spiritual beings that age as we develop faith in God. Apriorian is a group of spiritually mature Christians with the mission to raise as many who are spiritually immature into spiritual maturity, and by this means, increase our spiritual age. Our souls age but never die.